Hello and welcome to season 3 of the Financial Secrets Revealed podcast. This season we are meeting the experts, and I am joined by the most amazing expert of them all, the fabulous Felicity Cooper. She has been the Advisor of the Year for Money Management Magazine, the Financial Planning Association, and the Association of Financial Advisors. So welcome to the show, Felicity.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're the guru, obviously.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think the 30 years experience counts for something. You'd know all about that too, yeah.
So how long have you been advising, and how did you end up as a financial advisor?
So I have been advising for over 25 years, and I actually just fell into it. I was going to be an accountant, and then one of my lecturers said to me, "You talk too much, but you're good with numbers, so maybe you should go into," actually stockbroking is where I started.
Right.
So I went into a stockbroking firm with JB Weir, and then after a while you realise that investment pick is just such a small part of the whole financial situation that, you know, you can do these great things with investments, but if you don't have the strategy right, then you waste some of that. So that's why I started to move into planning.
What do you think the differences are between someone who sees an accountant or sees a planner? For people who don't know the differences, can you sort of explain where they fit?
I think they're different but complementary, and we do have overlaps. So there's a grey point in the middle. So, you know, on tax, we usually work with somebody's accountant. On structures, we would work with someone's accountant. But we find that they often look backwards, whereas we're planning for 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years down the track. And it's just that little bit more holistic, I think. You know, we're looking at the super, we're looking at the insurance, we're looking at estate planning, we're looking at goal setting, we're looking at what they want to do with their kids. And for a lot of our clients, we're trying to tie in that work life and business with the things that are important to them as a person as well. So a little bit more on the personal side, I find.
Right. So for someone who's never seen a financial planner before, and I mean, we've both probably had it said to us 1,000 times, when I get some money, I'll come and see you.
No.
What would you say to someone about financial planning and the process and taking that first step?
So firstly, I'd say the sooner you do it, the better. So don't wait till you've got, you know, lots of money to see a planner, because without the planner, your chances of getting that financial freedom and lots of money is actually less. So the sooner you do it, the better. If you can make changes when you're 25 years old, you know, you can be set for life with tiny little increments that you're never even going to notice along the way. So I think it's like planting trees. Best time to do it was 20 years ago. Second best time is today. So I would think everybody should see a planner sooner rather than later. I might be a little biased, obviously, but it's rare that you find somebody that you can't help that hasn't thought of something.
True. So the difference between somebody who has no money and starting out and may need a financial counsellor versus a financial advisor, what do you see as the difference there?
I don't know that there's a huge difference. You know, I think that we're still financial counsellors along the way, but there is a point before you see a planner probably where, you know, we do want to make sure that we're adding value for fees. So there's a cost to give advice, and if you can't afford that or they can't add value, then I think that there's that place for that financial coach or counsellor. You know, if you're struggling with debt and cash flow management and that's all you want advice on, then I think there's a place for that counsellor or coach. But if you want that holistic view, then I think nobody does it like a qualified planner does it. But there is a place for both, and particularly for financial education. So understanding the jargon, you know, doing the basics right first so that by the time you see a planner, you already know, oh, I need this much. This is where everything is. And you've got a basic understanding, because I think it's one of those problems that we have where people aren't actually taught basic financial management anymore.
Well, there's no literacy taught in our school system still, is there? So it's very hard. And if our parents didn't know much about money because their parents didn't teach them much about money, then it's hard to suddenly become an expert overnight and tell your kids how to do it.
So I think that piece is really important, and I don't really care who does it. I just think it's important that it happens.
So the process, I've made the phone call, I've screwed up my courage, went, right, I'm off to see a financial advisor.
Please don't judge me.
What do I need to bring? What do you expect from me? Walking into an office for the first time with an award-winning financial advisor, how intimidated should I be, and what do I drag to the interview with me?
Don't be intimidated at all. Zero judgment in our office. And I have to point out every advisor is going to be different. So I'll just walk through our process rather than every advisor process. But for us, our first appointment is actually just getting to know you. So what is it that you're hoping to get from a planner? What's going on at the moment? Usually for a lot of people, when they see a planner for the first time, it's because they have a specific question. So what's that thing that's going on at the moment that actually made you reach out and see a planner? We'll get a basic overview of what you have, but you don't need to bring every bank statement and your last 10 super statements and 5 tax returns and 2 pay slips. For us, it's about, can we add value? Are we right with the right fit? Are you going to be comfortable with us? So we're going to have a good working relationship. And then we can start getting all that extra information. And if you haven't done your last tax return, don't let it stop you. It's okay. Most people haven't. So I think bring what you're comfortable with.
For sure. Keep talking about adding value. How do you know that you can add value to a person's financial situation? What things are you looking to do?
For us, it's actually really mathematical. So if we can't add, on average, 3 times our fee in actual quantifiable, measurable financial outcomes, then there's a discussion that we'll have about whether or not we're the right fit. And that's, can we improve how much you're going to have in retirement? Can we improve the income that you're going to have? Can we save money on superannuation fees by changing your super, whether it's the actual superannuation or just the investment mix? Can we add investment returns? Can we pay down tax deductible debt instead of non-tax deductible debt and get you tax savings? There's so much benefit to a financial planner that's not measurable, but there's a lot that we can measure. And I think you should be able to do both.
So the process for you, I've like I said, screwed up my courage. I've popped on in. I might have brought my last super statement and some insurances. What happens next?
So from there, if there's any extra information that we need, we'll send you an email and ask for that. But we do a very basic strategy that looks at, these are all the things that we would look at. So you don't have a will, let's get on to that. Your super is invested in something that's not right for you. We'll have to have a look at that. You don't have insurance, we'll look at that. The way that you've got your cash flow management isn't quite right. We'll look at that. So we'll go through everything that we're going to look at and start a quantifiable, and this should be able to save you this much. So it's not a full plan at that point, but it is pretty much an overview of the strategy that we're going to be able to look at. And then we'll say, and based on us doing all of that, this is going to be our fee. And it's not until that point that we know what the fee will be, because again, it has to be a win for both people and we need to know that we add value. And it's not until we get to that point that we have an idea really of how much work there's going to be.
So if someone goes, oh my God, that's all really overwhelming, can I do bits and pieces, or do I have to do it all in one go? And that might frighten me.
Yep, you don't have to do it all in one go. But the plan is there so that you've got a roadmap. So that, these are the things we want to do over the next, for us, usually 12 months. But then there's things that we want to do in 3 years or 5 years. So if you're 60 years old, we'll start thinking about what you might want to do in 5 years' time or in 7 years' time and put those blocks in place now. So it's not a go and fix everything all at once, but you at least know, okay, if we have to do one thing, this is the most important thing to do first. And you have somebody to keep you accountable.
That's really important, isn't it? So you said people often have this one question at the start that they come to you for. So is that like, oh, my best friend's husband just died and I don't know what insurance I've got? What sort of questions or triggers cause people to come and see you?
Yep. And bear in mind that women, so for females, we see planners usually because of a particular reason. So males often do it because it's the right thing to do. You know, I should have all these things done. Women, it's often a trigger point that leads them to get advice. And those are, you know, inheritances, interest rates going up, having kids, wanting to buy a house, hearing about somebody else's disastrous superannuation returns or losing money. But it is usually something, you know, we've sold a property or we've got our interest rate is going from fixed to variable and we don't know what that's going to look like. So I find there's usually a burning question that people want answered first, rather than this whole fix all at once.
Fair enough. So you've outlined the, I suppose, discovery or the initial chat where you want to know a bit more about us. How much thought do I have to actually put into my goals? Like, what if I don't know what I don't know? Like, you talk about how much we're going to retire on, and people might go, I've no idea what that looks like. I don't know how long I want to work for. Do we have to sit down and go, right, I want to retire with $1 million in my bank account or live on 60 grand a year? How specific do we need to be when we see you?
Well, more specific is better, but I think that that's part of that conversation, is that you don't know until somebody else is sitting opposite you and go, have you thought about this? You know, if you had to have outcome A or outcome B, which one is most important to you? And you start prioritizing things. For a lot of people, I find when it comes to retirement, it's not I want $1 million or I want this much. For most people, it's I just want to live the same way I'm living now. And then you can start to work backwards and go, okay, well, what does that mean? But I think the other thing to bear in mind with that is a financial plan isn't a document. It's a journey. And so we'll write a beautiful plan and it will be awesome and it will be wrong, because the thing that we know is that the market's not going to go up in this beautiful straight line like we put on a plan. Your life isn't going to work out exactly the way that it's got in the plan. The things that are most important to you will change. You'll think of new things that you want to do. It's there as a guideline, as a benchmark, so that we have something to change and adjust and know that we're on track, rather than playing financial Jenga going, okay, well, this decision has come up. How does it sit within a plan? But the idea that there is a plan and that that's what the next 20 years is going to look like, it's not going to happen.
Life's messy.
Yeah. And have a look at COVID. You know, the things that you thought were important to you before COVID are not necessarily the same things that you think are important to you now. It's led a whole readjustment of what are my priorities and what are the trade-offs that I'm happy to give.
I suppose which leads very easily into that next question of, well, once you've set me up, can't I just go on my merry way? Why do I need to, come back and see you every year or so? Why do I have to pay this fee for you to just keep looking at everything when you've supposedly set it up? What's the value in coming back to you all the time?
Because things change. So you change. It's the accountability piece. So, you were meant to pay this much off your home loan. Have you done that this year? Did you set up the salary sacrifice that you were going to do? Have you paid off enough that now we can reduce the insurance and your costs that you're currently holding? Because obviously the older you get, the less debt you have, and the older the kids are, the less insurance you need. So is someone reviewing that? The fund that was great is not performing anymore. The fees have gone up on that and it's not the right thing anymore. The rules have changed about how much you can put into super. Now there's first home saver scheme that there wasn't previously. Things change all the time. And the plan has to change with it.
Yeah, I suppose it's like those all the top, like they talk about the top golfers still have coaches. I think they said Tiger Woods had 3 coaches, one for the long game, the short game, and putting. Other entrepreneurs still have these people that they're accountable that keep them on track. So it makes perfect sense to keep coming back and checking in, because it's very easy to put it on the shelf to gather dust, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing is it's that pivot effect. So if you start going in the wrong direction and we pick it up quickly, we can get you back on track really easily. If you go away for 10 years and it's set up incorrectly, we've got a lot of work to try and make up.
for sure. Have you got some stories, obviously anonymous, where you can show, look, this I sat down with, Mrs. Smith, and this is what we did for her, and these were the benefits that came to her from that?
Oh, we've got reams of them. But some of my favourites. So we had a client that came in and said, I'm set up for my retirement. I don't even know that I need a planner. Probably just need someone to look over it and tell me that it's all fine. And by the time we looked at it, took money out of his super, put it back in and got tax deductions on the way through, moved some of his super into his wife's name for Centrelink purposes. They weren't massive things, but they were just consistent over a couple of years. So we saved him $180,000 in tax just
Happy days.
and in Centrelink benefits that they wouldn't have got. So, their fee was $8,000. Do you think they were upset about it? Not at all.
$180,000 better off, yeah.
Yep. We've got another client who had, $400,000 sitting in cash because they didn't know what to do with it. So they'd received as inheritance, sat in cash, did nothing with it. They had a home loan that was over $600,000 just by putting it in an offset account. Over the life of the loan was over $100,000 of interest saved with no additional risk, just having the cash in the right place. I think it's just somebody that looks at things with a fresh set of eyes and goes, actually, if you did it this way, completely different outcome.
And I often think of it as like outsourcing. I mean, there's things we all don't like to do or that we're not good at. Maybe it's ironing. So you pay someone to do that. Not exactly a professional situation, but it's that thing, isn't it? Like you said, it's the fresh set of eyes, someone who's experienced in this. They do it all the time. They know what they're looking for and pick it up really quickly. Like you said, and can make those adjustments.
And lets you do the things that are important to you. So a really good example of that was we were going through end of financial year reviews and noticed that one of our business clients who had their own business hadn't made any super contributions. They've been saving it all year. So they've got $27,000 sitting in their bank account, but had forgotten to make the contribution and were overseas. So with one quick email that said, you meant to do that, can you hop on and do the BPay this afternoon because the cut-off's tomorrow, they saved $8,700 in tax and did their super contribution. It's just having that other person that's looking at it for you so that it's not all on you.
So for someone who's not as privileged as we are to live on the fabulous east coast of Australia in God's waiting room or the beautiful, glorious Gold Coast, and they need to find a financial advisor, what do you suggest people look for? I know they don't go through the old yellow pages anymore. They jump onto Google and go find a financial planner in my area. What sort of things should they look out for when picking a planner?
I think the important thing there is also some people do value that face-to-face local, but most planners these days, again from COVID, I think, do more than half their appointments on Zoom and now have clients all around the country. I'm sure you do. So you don't have to have someone local. B, if they are local though, and you want someone local, I would start with something like the FAAA site and actually look for an advisor in your area. And then I would check them out on the Money Smart site and make sure that they're fully qualified and a registered advisor. But you think of those things like Melissa Caddick, which just kills me. She wasn't even a planner. Yeah, if you did a simple search on a Money Smart website, which is a government site that lists all advisors, you would have seen that she's not an advisor. So on that site, you can see, are they an advisor? Have they ever been banned? Are they a member of a professional body? What are they actually licensed to give advice for? Is it limited at all? Who are they affiliated with? And make sure that there's somebody, that you can trust. But the other thing is I think go and date a few. Like just because you go and have an initial appointment with a planner doesn't mean that you have to use that person. Go and see 2, 3, 4 and find somebody that you're happy to have a long-term relationship with, that you feel really comfortable with, that get you.
I think the one thing you brought out is the different types of advice advisors give, because if I want to go and see someone about a self-managed superannuation account or retirement savings, you probably don't want a specialist in insurance to be able to do that. So seeking out those, specialists in those areas too is really valuable.
Yep.
So going down the rabbit hole on the Melissa Caddicks of the world, how can people protect themselves against, like you've just said, okay, that's one thing to do the search for them. Are there sites that have testimonials, or, do you recommend Google or LinkedIn? How else can you do a bit more due diligence to find out about your advisor?
I think all of those things. So firstly, make sure they're an advisor. Are they part of an industry body? Are they fully qualified, which luckily now you can also see on that Money Smart site. Have a look at if they have Google reviews. Some people use advisor ratings. But the other thing is have a look at the way that they manage the assets. So for us, for example, we don't use any accounts where your money isn't held not in your name. So if you have a look at some of the things that have gone very badly in the past, it's because the assets weren't actually held as a beneficial owner of the client. So for us, like if you have a Macquarie account that's a cash account, you can log into Macquarie any day of the week. You're with your own login and have a look at your own account. If you're on Hub24, you've got to log in and you can log into Hub24. It's not all through us. So, and that's important as well. So if I get hit by a bus, it's not like they're my assets. They're all your assets. All you have to do is change the advisor name on them.
I'm going to throw you a curly one. Clients are starting to turn up and go, right, can make all my money on crypto. What's your stand or advice or feedback to people who are looking for the next best get rich? Come on, I want to do it quickly. I don't want to take time and pay your fees. Come on, get me rich now.
Well, they're probably not going to come to us in the first place because it's not really our thing. But I have to say, on the crypto side, to me, it's a significant gamble. So we're talking about an unregulated asset. It doesn't mean that you can't have any of it, but to be honest, the person that's investing in crypto probably knows more about it than I do. So I'm not going to give advice on it. I think that people should be very careful about having too many of their assets in something like that. But I think the same for going for a mining stock or any of those more speculative investments. It's all about having balance. I'm not going to advise on it. I like regulation. I like things that I can see. I like the idea of owning a bit of a company that I can drive past. I don't understand crypto, so I'm not going to pretend to. I like to keep it simple. If I can't explain it, I shouldn't be putting clients into it.
Great advice. Great advice. Is there one sort of tip that someone told you or that you wish every client knew or would get their head around or was taught in schools, something that just everyone should understand about money?
Well, I think the most simple thing that people probably don't understand is the whole concept of compounding. So people talk about compounding, and I think people understand it when it comes to investments. So I put something in, it grows, then I get growth on that growth, and my money works for me more and more. Most people have heard of compounding in that environment or scenario. Sometimes I think they don't understand that it also happens to debt. So debt, when it's not paid off, also compounds. I was reading on Facebook on one of the groups yesterday about somebody who said, know somebody that's taken a reverse mortgage on their house. And it started as $20,000 and now it's up to over $60,000 because there's no repayments on it. And so the $20,000 had some interest put on it, and then now there's interest being charged on that interest. And then 2 years later, there's interest being charged on both those years' interest, and that also compounds. And I think it's one of those things that's very easy at the moment to get debt, whether it's through Afterpay or pay as you go, like those, payment plans or credit cards. And I just think if there's one thing that can actually stop you from reaching your goals, it's that cost of debt in the background that compounds and can get so difficult to get back out of.
Yeah, it is the eighth wonder of the world when it's working for you, but not
Yep.
so hot when it's your credit card debt at 20% or, yeah, the reverse mortgage. So
Well, we're seeing credit card at 24% for some people now.
it doesn't even make sense with the interest rates. We've had historical lows for the last few years and they haven't moved.
Yep.
Mental. Mental. So if people haven't learnt a lot about money through their lifetime, compounding's a really good thing for them to learn. If you think any parent could teach their children one lesson about how to manage their money, what do you think would be a really good idea to understand yourself to be able to pass on?
Oh, there's so many of those. Like having a teenager myself, I like it's all good in theory, but when you've got your own child, it's a little bit harder to teach.
They'll never listen to you because you're just a parent, but
Yeah, exactly. So the first one is pay yourself first. So put money aside for saving before you spend it all. So, whether it's 10%. And the great thing in Australia is we have that through superannuation now, but I still think that there's a place for people to learn to save. And if you save what's left, chances are is you're never going to save. So make saving one of the priorities. So that's one. But the other thing that I love teaching kids about is that markets go up and down and that investing is a long thing. So I know, my child has an investment bond, and in COVID, I said to her, "Oh, kiddo, that investment bond not going so well in the middle of COVID." And she went, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, think if you had $100, now you only have 70." She's like, "Oh my goodness, we've got to get it out. It'll all be gone." And I said, "No, let's just sit in it, see how it goes." So, we sit in it, and then, COVID, obviously everything bounced a lot quicker than we expected. So 6 months later, I said, "Yeah, it's recovered really well. Your $70 is back to $100 again." She said, "Oh, should we take it back out?" I said, "No, we'll just see how it goes." And now it's up, and she's the one that came to me and said, is it still okay? And I said, "Yeah, now it's like $110. She said, "Oh, we should have bought more when it was down at 70."
Bless. What a lesson.
But I think that's so good, because as humans, we tend to sell when we're worried and buy when we have a fear of missing out, when things are going well. Whereas if we could actually teach people very early that the actual opposite to that is the right thing. When everything tells you this is bad and I don't like losses and I want to get out, then maybe that's a time to be looking at, is there value?
Time to be brave.
Yep. And likewise, when everybody is telling you, how great property is and you can never lose money out of it and everything is going up, and you've missed it a little bit, maybe that's not actually the time to do it.
To jump in, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that herd mentality, isn't it, though, that, you get that great tip and think, "Oh, might follow that one." And, yeah, taxi driver doesn't always know.
No, not always.
If you could leave everybody, Felicity, with one final piece of get your shit together advice, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to say see a planner.
Well,
I know we laugh at that, but most planners that I know will have a conversation with you or even initial meeting, and I think you'll get something out of it, whether or not you need a planner or not. Like, I think it's just that, the barefoot investor is great, but it still doesn't go through all the steps of adulting your money, and it definitely doesn't go through what you need to do. So
I think it's a great start, isn't it, for people who've got no financial literacy to go, right, I'm going to work out a budget. I'm going to get my little bucket strategies going, and it's a great place to kick off from.
Yep.
But there is so much more.
And following it blindly is actually really dangerous.
True. Can you point out some of those ways instead of leaving that as a hanging statement?
As a hanging point? And I think we've spoken about it before. The worst thing that I have ever seen in my career was a guy that came into us with 2 little kids, and his wife had passed away. And he said, "I've been looking everywhere. I can't find her insurance. I know she has insurance. We did it when the kids came. Somewhere there is life insurance, and it's meant to be enough that we're going to be okay." And we looked at it, and she'd actually read The Barefoot Investor and switched her super. So closed her existing super and switched it all over, but didn't realise, obviously, that the super is where the insurance was. So in doing that, she unwittingly, I assume, cancelled her insurance. So there was no insurance. So there's this guy with 2 kids who now lives with his mum and dad, who has had a nervous breakdown and he can't work himself, who thought, and I think she thought, that they were all going to be okay financially. And just because they'd read a book and they could save a couple $100 in fees, ended up with no protection at all.
Yeah, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars down.
Million.
Wow.
They were only young.
Awful lesson to learn.
Yeah, and somebody had actually worked out, if you can never earn again and you have 2 kids, this is how much money you're going to need. She had the right insurance.
Wow. That's a heartbreaker.
Oh.
No, good, very good point. And again, is it right for your situation? I suppose that's where the advisors come in, because everything is tailored, because we have to learn so much about you and what you want to achieve before we even make recommendations. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it's all on point. Well, thank you so much, Felicity. Do we want to do one final little plug? Because we have a joint project that we'll be launching quite soon.
We do indeed. I think so.
A podcast.
Well, it's a little bit different, isn't it? So
It's a little bit different to this format, that's for sure.
Yep. And came about over whiskey.
As all
good things do. Well, drink. I don't know about the whiskey thing. You still haven't turned me into a whiskey drinker. But yes, if you are interested, keep an eye out for 2 Drunk Planners, where we drink cocktails and talk money and pull apart some of the very interesting advice that we see on groups like Facebook, go through what's happening in markets and finance world and strategy world, do Amanda's favourite part, what gets on her goat.
I'm not doing the noise this time.
No. But it's very relaxed, and I think just a nice way of building financial knowledge.
Yes. That'll be a little duet in the coming months, so stay tuned for 2 Drunk Planners. So again, thank you so much for joining me, Felicity. Really appreciate our time together and having you on Meet the Experts.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you for a cocktail.
Again, soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.